It was a sunny afternoon on Friday when Pastor Akolade Arowolo ran out of his apartment with his hands seriously injured and covered in blood. He hurriedly washed his hands just outside his apartment and then screamed at the gateman to quickly open the gate. Akolade rushed into his green Honda Accord car and zoomed off. A neighbor in the four-story apartment building, who also witnessed the unsettling scenario along with the gateman, was left dumbfounded. It wasn't new to them for Pastor Akolade to have a fight with his wife, Titilayo Omozoje, but what got them worried this time around was the fact that Akolade had sustained a major injury and also had bloodstains all over his clothes, while his wife Titilayo was nowhere to be found. A few hours before Akolade was seen running out of his apartment, his wife's sister, Folake, had called Titilayo's phone, but instead of Titilayo, it was Akolade who answered the call. When the sister called back some hours later, there was no response from Titilayo and they couldn't reach Akolade either. Some hours later, a family friend called Folake to inform her that they had seen Akolade running out of the apartment with a cut on his hands and bloodstains on his clothes. Hearing this, coupled with what she and her family already knew about Akolade, Folake quickly informed her family and they all decided to go check on Titilayo the next day at their residence in Isolo, Lagos State, Nigeria. On that same day, 3 policemen on patrol duty found Akolade's car parked at a junction with the key left in the ignition, but without Akolade in sight. The policemen also noticed bloodstains on the steering wheel as well as on the door of the car. They drove the car back to their station for safekeeping. The next day, being Saturday, July 25, 2011, Titilayo's family arrived at the couple's residence. They knocked on the door, but there was no response. They peeped through the window, but they couldn't find anyone inside. One of them decided to pass through the ceiling in the neighbor's apartment to get into the couple's flat, while the people outside were making frantic efforts to force the door to the apartment open. The 2 parties were trying their best to get into the apartment as soon as possible, with the hope that nothing horrible had happened to their daughter. But nothing in the world would have ever prepared them for the horrific discovery they would make after they've gained access to the couple's apartment. When they eventually got into the flat, they found Titilayo lying dead on the bed and in a condition that was too graphic to describe in this video. The police were called to the scene immediately, and even the most experienced police officer amongst them was shocked by what they witnessed that very day. The police took pictures of the scene and also carried out their preliminary investigations. They found a kitchen knife at the scene as well as 4 mobile phones. Titilayo's body was evacuated and a post-mortem examination would later reveal that she had been stabbed a total of 76 times. Pastor Akolade was arrested the next day and taken in for questioning, where he would then go on to tell the police one of the most ridiculous cover-up stories ever. Akolade Arowolo was a 31-year-old youth pastor in the Redeemed Christian Church of God. He was formerly a youth pastor at Foursquare Gospel Church in Festac Town before moving to Isolo to join the Redeemed Church. Akolade met 29-year-old Titilayo in 2005 when he was undergoing his postgraduate studies at Lagos State University. Titilayo was a staff member at Skybank, while Akolade claimed to be an auditor, although his wife's family stated that he was unemployed. The two became good friends and got really close to each other, so close that he eventually got her pregnant in 2008. The pregnancy was described as accidental, and Akolade was quoted to have said that it wasn't really his plan to marry Titilayo. However, he got married to her about 3 months later that same year. Their relationship wasn't all rosy. It was filled with numerous cases of domestic violence and abuse. Titilayo's colleagues at work recounted that there were instances when Titilayo would show up at work with several bruises. Her father would also later tell the court that Akolade had threatened to push Titilayo from their 4-story apartment building someday. Akolade claimed that they often faced challenges typical of many young couples. They would disagree on matters big and small. He also stated that Titilayo was so hot-tempered that she would flare up whenever she didn't have her way with things. This attitude made them give her the nickname Margaret Thatcher, the name of a one-time female British Prime Minister who was considered an iron lady by many. One significant quarrel occurred a few months before the birth of their daughter, Olamide. Titilayo had demanded 500,000 naira to buy things in preparation for the baby's arrival. However, Akolade told her that he only had 100,000 naira in his possession. This didn't sit well with Titilayo, as she was reported to have packed her things and left for her parents' house. Akolade also said that he noticed a change in his wife's attitude a few months into the marriage. He then sought advice from a friend who told him to leave the house whenever there was an argument. Akolade decided to put this to test. One Friday, he left home for a vigil, but did not return home the following morning. He went to stay with a friend, hoping that his wife would miss him. However, the opposite became the case, and he rushed back home that same day. When he arrived home that day, he was met with an unpleasant surprise. He saw his wife with another man in the house. Titilayo quickly introduced the strange man as her colleague at work, after which the man hurriedly left the house. Akolade then went through her phone and noticed that she had called her father, her ex-boyfriend, and one other unknown number. He then asked her why she didn't call him when he didn't return home the previous night. Titilayo told him that she didn't have airtime on her phone. Akolade asked her where she got the airtime to call the 3 people he saw on her call log. This got Titilayo very angry, and she warned him never to go through her phone ever again. She collected her phone back and then proceeded to call her ex-boyfriend right in front of her husband. This got Akolade so angry that he snatched the phone from her and then smashed it against the wall. In retaliation, Titilayo also took his phone and smashed it against the wall. In this heat of the moment, Akolade gave her a slap, to which Titilayo responded by packing her things and moving back in with her parents. Apart from domestic abuse, there was also an instance of infidelity. It was reported that a house help once caught Akolade in bed with another woman in their matrimonial home. She then proceeded to share the incident with Titilayo, who then packed her things and left for her parents' house. Her father would later testify that Titilayo had moved back in with them over 10 times since she got married. During these times, Akolade would visit them to beg for forgiveness, and Titilayo would eventually forgive him and return home with him. Akolade also claimed that his wife was very secretive. He said Titilayo had once connived with her stepmother to abort her pregnancy without consulting him about it. This action created a significant crack in their already troubled marriage. Now, this is when things began to get really interesting. When Akolade was questioned by the police, he denied killing his wife that day. He went on to tell them what he claimed happened that day. 24 June 2011 was Akolade's birthday. According to him, he had woken up around 3 a.m. on that day to pray, after which he made love to his wife for over 2 hours. They then proceeded to talk about their relationship. It was at this point that Titilayo promised to be a better wife and that she would never leave to her father's house again whenever they had a marital issue. Later that morning, Akolade got a call from his father, who wished him a happy birthday. He also received more calls from well-wishers before leaving for the bank to withdraw money for his birthday celebration. On his way back home, he met with his mechanic to fix his car, as he and Titilayo had planned to use it to pick up their daughter from her grandparents' house. When Akolade got home, things quickly became tense. He found Titilayo dressed to go out, even though they had earlier agreed to stay home and watch TV together. This led to a disagreement, which quickly turned into an argument. Akolade reminded Titilayo of her promises to be a better wife and stay committed to their marriage. However, things got worse when Titilayo slapped him and then took a call from her father, telling him to ask Akolade, her husband, to leave her alone. The situation escalated dramatically when Akolade claimed he saw Titilayo holding a knife. He said she had been drinking some alcohol earlier and that her behavior was unlike anything he had ever seen. He tried to calm her down, but she allegedly attacked him with the knife. According to Akolade, they struggled over the knife and he suffered deep cuts to his hand. Despite his injuries, the struggle continued until both of them fell on the bed and the knife slipped from Titilayo's hand. Akolade described how he desperately searched for a way to get help. The door was locked and he couldn't find the key. In his panic, he tried to break down the door using kitchen tools, but he eventually gave up. With no other options, he claimed he jumped from their 4-story apartment to get away. He said his mechanic arrived at that moment and he got into the car and headed to the police station for help. Now, this is where his story got a little bit ridiculous. Akolade claimed that on his way to the police station, he saw some policemen by the roadside. He stopped to talk to them, and while he was doing so, a car hit him from behind and he lost consciousness. When he woke up the next morning, he found himself at the dump site near a public school and couldn't remember how he got there. Throughout his testimony, Akolade insisted that he never took his wife's life. He wrote in his statement that Titilayo persistently stabbed herself and claimed that something was wrong with her, either mentally or spiritually. Akolade was arraigned in a magistrate court 2 weeks after the crime had been committed, but the case was later transferred to the Ikeja High Court. The trial officially began in January of the next year. 15 people testified against Akolade, but he maintained his innocence. In a bid to wiggle his way out of the case, Akolade claimed that he was forced by the police to write in his statement that the injuries on his wife were self-inflicted, which was ridiculous because she couldn't have done that to herself 76 times without the knife falling out of her hand at some point. The court found out that Akolade's testimonies were very disjointed and the majority of them were contradictory. His parents also claimed in court that there was never any history of domestic violence in their marriage. Titilayo's father later revealed that Akolade's parents had asked him to withdraw the case from the court. He also revealed to journalists alleging that his in-laws tried to cover up their son's crime by bribing the police to release Akolade's car to them, which they then sold to hide incriminating evidence. Nevertheless, the last piece of evidence that settled the case was the forensic examination report submitted by a pathologist. This report ruled out the possibility of self-harm and then nailed Akolade as the murderer. On February 21, 2014, almost 3 years after the crime was committed, the judge found Pastor Akolade guilty of murder and then sentenced him to death by hanging. Akolade, who showed up in court with his Bible, broke down in tears on hearing the verdict. He could barely walk and was heard calling on his wife to come and vindicate him.
I cannot be bound. I cannot help myself.
Take your picture and leave now.
Jesus. Name of Jesus.
Only Michael.
I am the leader. I cannot be condemned.
Yes.
I cannot die. I did not do it, therefore I cannot. In the name of Jesus. I am coming out soon. In the name of Jesus. Coming out soon. In the name of Jesus.
It is shocking how Akolade maintained that he was innocent even to the very end. Do you believe he was truly innocent and that the police maybe missed something during their investigation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel for more true crime stories. Thank you for watching and stay safe.